Hi folks, Toad here with Visordown.com, and we are in the lovely surroundings of Caffeine and Machine, which is just outside of Stratford. If you've never been, get yourself down here, it's very nice. And we are here for the launch of Suzuki's new Katana. So we've been riding the bike all day today. We've done, I would say, probably about 80 miles so far on it, and started off very, very wet, and then this afternoon, luckily, the roads dried out so we could properly evaluate the performance of the bike. So let's have a look at what I think. First and foremost, the bike is in dealers now, and it's priced at a shade under £12,000. Deliveries, if you pre-ordered one, they're going to be taking place this week. But if you like what you see, get yourself down to a dealer, because there are demo bikes that you can go out and test ride. So first and foremost, the engine. The bike is really, really torquey. For a 4-cylinder, you don't want for any more torque at all. It's got 150 horsepower, which comes in, peak power is around about 10,000. If I'm honest, there's not a massive amount that happens above 8,500. But it's a very tractable motor. We've been riding a lot through villages and towns, and also the sort of the sweeping country roads that you can see on your screen now. And it is a lovely motor. It's very tractable. It's very easy to ride. It's got a bespoke tune for this machine, which is kind of the tune that you'd want for a naked bike. It's got plenty of sort of low down grunt, plenty of mid-range. And it's just it's a lovely motor. It's got a lovely character, it's got a lovely engine note, and the induction noise that you get from it is really typically Suzuki. So we've got peak torque, which is 80 foot-pounds, so that works out at about 110 newton meters, and again that's coming in at 9,000 RPM, which sounds really, really peaky for a torque figure, but there is a very broad spread of the torque. For a lot of the riding that you can do, you can leave it in sort of 5th and 6th gear and still make overtakes if you need to, as long as they're not too hurried. Like I was talking about the power, it's just a very tractable unit, and very easy to ride. It's not fearsome like some 1000cc nakeds are. It's just user friendly, and it's got a very user friendly character to it. So up front we've got 43mm KYB, KR, but whatever you want to call them, forks, which are adjustable. The front end is very, very plush, slightly too soft, I would say, for a lot of people. I'm quite small, and I found it does dive quite a lot on the brakes, but it's a very comfortable front end, and you can brake very, very late into corners. Even though it dives a little bit, it's not so much that it's damped very well. So you know, if the front end drops down, it's not bouncing around through the corners. A little bit at odds with the rear end. I found the rear shock to be a little bit harsh. It is preload and rebound damping adjustable, so you could have a play with it on a press launch where it's only one day. You don't really get the time to adjust it. But I did find that the front and the rear suspension seemed to me to be a little bit of a mismatch. If I was owning one, the first thing I'd do when I got it home is get it in the garage and have a play around with the suspension settings to try and get it a bit better suited to my size and my weight. So braking is taken care of by 320mm Brembo discs and calipers up front. We've got a single no branded caliper on the rear wheel. The whole braking system is extremely good. We were talking in the press conference earlier on, and some manufacturers go for a heavy initial bite or a really hard initial bite. What Suzuki have gone for with this, with the pads and the caliper and the disc setup, is that there's a very progressive brake from the first pull of the lever all the way to where you're pulling the lever right back to the stop. And it is exactly what they've completely succeeded in that. The braking system is very confidence inspiring. It works well around town. You don't find yourself sort of, you know, if you were carrying a pillion, they wouldn't constantly be banging their helmet into the back of yours every time that you pulled the brake. It's again, like the engine, the braking system is very user friendly. It's got ABS on there, which isn't switchable, which might put some people off, but then again, this isn't a track bike. It's there, and you can feel it cutting on some of the greasier roads that we were riding earlier on, but again, it's not too intrusive. The type of bike it doesn't have things like cornering ABS or an IMU. It's a bit more analog than that. It's not a digital motorcycle in terms of the support that it gives you, but it's got everything you need, and it's got more braking power than I'd ever need on the road. So, keeping you entertained, we've got a very funky looking but retro style dash. So it's like a digital dash, it's not a TFT dash. But it's very cool, and it kind of, when you see the new dash next to the old Katana, you can see that I've tried to carry over some of the styling of the original Katana's dash in the new one, and it's not the easiest dash in the world to read. There's a lot of information held within the dash, and you have to remember which bit of information you need and where to go to find it. You don't have massive amounts of riding modes on the bike. You've only got 4 levels of traction control, either fully off, 1 which is the lowest form of intrusion, 2 and then 3 which is full traction control. But again, this kind of bike, it's not the kind of bike that you want to have loads of riding modes, and you don't want to be going into all the menus to try and sort of play with the engine settings. And it's a big naked bike for cruising around on a sunny afternoon and going to a bike meet. It's not something you're going to crack up massive amounts of miles on, and I doubt it's something that many people would take on a track day. So, finally, what we like. I like the styling. There are a lot of people on social media who are giving the bike a bit of a hard time, saying it's not a real Katana. Of course it's not a real Katana. The real Katana was air-cooled. Air-cooled bikes won't make it past Euro 4 or Euro 5 at this capacity, so it has to be water-cooled. And to those people that prefer the original Katana, go out and buy one. If you rode the two back-to-back, I guarantee you this would be faster, safer and more comfortable than the original bike. I also like the fact that in a digital world, this bike has got retro styling and it still feels almost old school. It's one of the few modern 1000cc plus nakeds that you can buy at the minute that doesn't have a ride-by-wire throttle, so it's got a conventional cable-operated throttle, and I much prefer the connection with the bike from a cable-operated throttle. I always find that electronic throttles, there's always that little bit of doubt as to where the power's going to come in or where you are in the initial part of opening the throttle, and that carries over onto the whole of the bike. It's got a nice analog feeling to it, which is perfectly in keeping with the style of the machine. I also like the way that the engine is really tractable, whether you're riding in town, on a motorway, A roads around here or dual carriageways. You never feel like you need something extra that the engine doesn't have. It's got all the power, it's got all the torque, it's got a really broad spread of torque in all the right places. It's a perfect motor if you ride a really varied mix of roads. So what do I not like? I know I could change it, but I've got to say I do think the rear end is a little bit firm. So first thing that I'd do, I'd soften up that rear end a little bit just to make it a little bit more comfortable. I did find the mirrors really hard to see. I don't know if it's the bar position or the way the mirrors are mounted, but they seem ever so close to you. So as soon as you start to lean forward any, you lose all sort of vision in the mirrors and you can't see what's going on behind you. Not a massive problem, but thought I'd mention it. The tank isn't the biggest, and this is going to be a big bear for some people, a big bugbear for some people. You can only get about 120 miles to the tank, so it's just over 12 litres, which when you put that into context is not a huge amount of petrol that you can take with you, especially if you're going to be riding it on the limit all the time. So, the verdict. It's still a good bike. It's not a brilliant bike. It's not going to go down in the annals of motorcycle history as the best 1000cc plus naked ever, but it's a very good basis for a retro machine like this. Just under £12,000 I think is there or thereabouts with the money. There are a lot of 1000cc plus nakeds that are a lot more. There are not many that are a lot less. And if you're a fan of the original Katana, but you don't want the lack of reliability, you don't want the air-cooled engine, you don't want the wayward handling and the sloppy brakes, then go down to a dealership, get yourself a test drive and tell us what you think. And you can read the full review of this bike on Visordown.com.